According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, nearly 33% of children aged 2 to 19 are considered obese. Now, this is obviously an issue with the youth in our nation, so a solution that we are proposing is called Kids Time. Kids Time will be an after-school program that will last for 60 minutes each day that will offer children an opportunity to improve their physical activity each day and their general overall well-being. First, we will begin with why there is a problem with obesity, the physical implications of obesity, and why Kids Time helps solve the issue. So now let's start with the issue of obesity in Kansas.
So there is obviously a problem with obesity in the United States and in particular Kansas. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Center for Disease Control, they surveyed 11,631 high school students, grades 9 through 12, and they found that 12.37% of the students engaged in only 20 minutes of physical activity 3 times a week. The daily recommended is 60 minutes, 5 days a week. Out of that same group, 70% of the students said they watched an hour of television every day after school, and 30% said they watched 3 hours of television every day after school. In that same study, 43.7% of the boys and just 52% of the girls were not even enrolled in a physical education class for the whole school year. And it's in the United States now, Illinois is the only state that has mandatory physical education classes for grades kindergarten through 12th grade, which is pretty astonishing. According to the Alliance for a Healthier Generation in 2017, nearly 1 in 3 children ages 2 to 19 in the United States are overweight or obese, and in Kansas, it's about the same. In Kansas, more than 1 in 3 children in Kansas remain overweight or obese. According to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, they found that 91% of American children have poor diets and get less than half the recommended physical activity every day. When I say poor diets, I mean kids are for school eating pizza. When they get home, they're having sodas and they're eating ice cream. And as every kid is allowed to have desserts like that, but it needs to be in moderation. And that's what this big problem is. And across the nation, schools have reduced recess time in favor of academic instruction, particularly among older children, and that's around like 8th grade and above. Obesity is obviously related to lack of physical activity and your poor diet, but it can also be due to the environment you live in. One study found that the odds of a child being obese or overweight rises from 20% to 60% if they live in unfavorable conditions, a bad neighborhood, poor environment, anything like that. And in Kansas, kids get only 15 minutes a day for recess, maximum. So that's if only they're lucky. 16.8% of children live below the poverty line in Kansas. So that could be a major indication why there's such an obesity problem in this state. So now I'm going to talk about obesity-related diseases children can get. So according to the Department of Human Health Services in 2016, obesity during childhood can lead to an increase in high blood pressure and high cholesterol, which in themselves can lead to a higher chance of cardiovascular disease, which is heart disease. It can also lead to type 2 diabetes and asthma. One of my best friends lived with asthma all through his childhood and still now, and a lot of his school days were ruined because of his asthma, so it's an actual really big problem for children. And then you have to think about the mental warfare of being obese in school. Kids tend not to be very nice when they're growing up, and so that makes bullying happen more often than not. And that means obese people who get bullied, they can have increase in anxiety and increase in depression. So now we're going to talk about the physical implications of being obese. Thank you.
So not only is obesity bad for the child, it can also be a financial strain on the parents, as there's a direct correlation between an obese child and higher costs. Dr. Tresande, who's a pediatric doctor, found that children who were obese had 194 higher outpatient expenditure costs, $114 higher prescription costs, $112 higher emergency costs per year. And this may not seem like that much money, but it can quickly add up. Eric Finkelstein, who is an American health economist, he wanted to estimate what this would actually cost over a lifetime. And he found that $19,000 is the incremental lifetime medical cost of an obese child who would maintain that weight into their adulthood life. So over 1 year, while it can cost hundreds, over a lifetime it can be thousands, which is a huge financial burden. However, this is not the only way that families are in need of this MPO, as it's not the only way that they're being financially strained. There is a trend of rising child cost cares in our nation. Locally, at the Lawrence Boys and Girls Club, the price of having a child watched is $11 a day, and if you consider the average school month has about 22 school days, that would cost about $242 a month just to have the child watched for 1 to 2 hours a day. Even closer to us at the Hilltop Child Development Center right over there in Dole, they show that after-school care of a child at the facilities can cost about $1,828. Now this program in specific is targeted at, they have options for lower income families, and $1,828 is still incredibly high, which is why it's concerning that it's for lower income families. And these are just two examples of locally. In Kansas, the average cost of childcare is $11,500 a year. And the Lawrence average income is $47,000 a year, which is actually below the national average. So that means about 25% of their annual income would go just towards childcare. These numbers were also just strictly for childcare and not doing anything about helping the rising rates of childhood obesity. One could send their child to camps, but those too come at a high price. LawrenceKansas.org posts about upcoming camps and clinics for children in our area, and they can be as much as $150. These ones are occurring this winter, and keep in mind that they're only for just a few hours a day and maybe only a couple days in a row. Getting your child involved and interacting with others is important, as well as increasing their physical activity. But not every family can afford spending hundreds of dollars in order to do this for their child. Now we're going to talk about creating a more personalized community experience.
Nowadays, with growing technology, kids are growing more distracted with TVs and video games and phones, that it's harder for children to want to stay motivated to help promote physical exercise to help reduce obesity. And with schools, there's not very much motivation to help exercise with general like PE time, where it's like this is where your certain amount of time where you have, this is where the time amount of exercise that you get, and you have to only do it at a certain time, and they focus more on academics. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually says that among the most difficult, the most important challenges for society is actually making an effective alternatives as attractive, exciting, and enjoyable as video games and other technology for children. Convincing school boards that PE and other school-based physical activity opportunities are just as important to long-term productivity as our academics, and changing both supplier and consumer attitudes about food selection and portion sizes, and engineering long living environments to promote physical activity. And basically what that means is just like that we should have more of a community-based system. It's not just like you think about, you have this certain amount of time where this is where you get your exercise. You revolve your whole life around promoting it and help keep the motivation for the child alive, basically. And the American Academy of Pediatrics actually goes on to say that creating active school communities is an ideal way to actually ensure that children and youth adopt active, healthy lifestyles. And these communities require a collaborative framework between families, schools, and community recreation leaders and health care professionals. So it really goes more, has to go beyond school. It can't just be something that children have to go to for their day, just for an hour. Their whole lives have to be around it, and it has to be more appealing. They have to have a want reason to make sure they want to stay exercising. So children are actually, like I said before, aren't actually getting the proper exercise that they need because of the proper lack of motivation and with the school not promoting it enough. So Danison and LeBlanc of Biomed Central Limited actually goes on to say, children and youth 5 to 17 years of age should accumulate an average of at least 60 minutes per day and up to several hours of at least moderate intensity physical activity. Some of the health benefits can be achieved through an average of 30 minutes per day, which basically means that schools aren't actually doing enough to make sure that each student is getting enough exercise that they need. But if we have like a community-based system like ours, we can help make sure each student actually gets. We can monitor each student, make sure they have the personalized experience that they get to help sure that they are keeping track with their exercise. And results from experimental studies indicate that even modest amounts of physical activity can have health benefits in high-risk youth, which basically means that if a child is more prone to being obese, having a consistent time in your day where you can have consistent exercise can be very beneficial to the health. And more vigorous intensity activities should be incorporated or added when possible, and possibly including activities that strengthen muscle and bone. Aerobic activities can make up the majority of the physical activities. So we can make sure that each student, we can make sure it's not just, oh, we're doing this today, we're doing this today. We can make sure that each student is actually getting a variety of things that they need personally, and not just a cookie cutter, like this is what everyone's doing. Each person can do different things based on what they're at with their health, and not underwork some people and overwork others. Make sure each person gets the right amount that they need. Now, the important thing about having a community-based environment is that make sure that the kids are actually feeling safe, because according to Michael Goran of the International Journal of Obesity, ideal relations should target increased physical activity in families as well as schools. And in order to keep that goal of preventing pediatric obesity, there is a clear need to design programs that are culturally relevant and appropriate for the diversity of school and children regarding things such as ethnicity, gender, age, region, and socioeconomic status, which basically means that students aren't, that if students feel safe and comfortable where they're at, they're going to feel more apt to want to be able to exercise. They're going to want to come to these environments, because if kids aren't feel comfortable at school, why would they want to do anything? Like, why would they want to do anything that could make them vulnerable or like stand out? They want to feel safe. Once they have the safety, then then they want to help promote their health. So if our community-based program would promote making sure each student can have a safe and inclusive environment for all students, and not just more so than what schools do. And now I'm going to talk about the mental. He's going to talk about the mental health benefits of having a community environment.
So as we see with the amount of violence in our country today, including the shooting yesterday in San Antonio, we have some mental health issues. And one of the main ways to improve mental health starts with physical activity. In a study done by the New England Journal of Medicine, over 13,000 students at over 148 private and public high schools. There's a study done on them showing that if they exercise less than 4 days a week, they experience sadness, suicide ideation, and suicide intent were at these rates. But when they exercise more than 4 days a week, their rates obviously decreased. In a study done by David Lubens, a professor with a PhD in public health from Oxford University, they did a study over 9 months of exercise, over 60 minutes a day. It showed improvements in attentional inhibition and cognitive flexibility. Also, in another study done by Jacqueline Hoying with a PhD in public health from Ohio State University, people struggling with ADHD showed improvement after aerobic exercise on average of 20% on reading comprehension tests. Now we will discuss the lack of proper nutrition in children.
So according to the Nutrition Journal, food has become more affordable for large numbers of people due to the decrease in income. Along with this, food has become less known for nourishment and more known as a sense of pleasure and a part of everyday life. Following this, according to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, fast food consumed by children increased by 300% between 1977 and 1996. And along with this, children who consume this amount of fast food and large amounts of soft drinks are not compensating this with the need for physical activity, or so they need to have a physical activity level that can compensate for that, or they need to have an energy intake decrease in order to work off these calories that they're putting in their body, since we have a 300% increase during those years. And then finally, PubMed, according to PubMed, childhood nutrition tendencies may carry into adulthood, and these tendencies include immediate social and health benefits may be obtained by changing childhood tendencies towards your nutrition, like how you eat. Along with this, certain behaviors may be required in childhood in order to live a healthy lifestyle into your adulthood. And also, chronic diseases and risk factors detected in youth may track into your adulthood years. So all of these reasons are reasons why we need to start looking at childhood obesity as a serious problem, and need to start pushing kids to have a higher energy intake, or have an energy intake decrease, and start to work out and exercise more. So along with these, all these health problems and the lack of proper nutrition training for children, we plan on actually implementing a program during our breaks, during kids' time, to where we will sit down with them and teach them about proper nutrition and the serious, dangerous effects of not eating properly. So next, I'll talk to you about our money breakdown. So Kids Time will run from 4 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. We will have 2 buses, which each hold 55 kids, and it is $550 per bus for 5 hours a week. So for the whole summer, this will be a total cost of $4,400 for 2 buses. And then we will also use Shank Sports Complex for our outdoor activities, which will be our main location. And this is free of charge to use to the public. And then if we have any weather problems or condition problems, we will be able to change to an indoor facility at Robinson, which charges $21 per day and requires a 1-week notice of when you're going to be using the building. And then if we were to receive this grant, 15% of our grant would go towards equipment, which includes things such as soccer balls, footballs, baseballs, safety equipment, so on. And then we would also hire 10 employees for the whole week, and that would be $330 per employee per week. And then along with this, we would also have volunteers who would help be in charge of running Kids Time. So next, I'll talk to you about our marketing plan. So our marketing plan is we'll make a deal with the Lawrence Public Schools to allow us to partner with them and be able to promote our organization throughout the public school system in Lawrence. And public schools kind of get the words out to the parents and the kids and let them know this is a safe environment and a healthy, active environment. And then we will also plan on advertising to students at KU who are looking for volunteer hours, since there's so many of us that always are trying to volunteer, so it will be a good way to help Kids Time be running. And then next, we will talk about our main points.
Obesity is a problem across the country, and the best and most effective way to solve this is to have kids be physically active every single day. If we can ingrain physical activity in their daily lives, we can positively change the current trajectory that our country is on. So if we were awarded this grant money, we would be able to put it in a good use, affecting our community positively. Thank you.
Any questions for this group? You listed that you were going to hire 10 employees. How will you go about hiring these? Like, who are you seeking out for employment?
I think we would start looking for maybe teachers, looking for some opportunities like Lawrence High School or the various daycares around town. We'd go around there and ask if anyone wanted some extra money for an hour of their time.
Okay. And you had said that if there was an issue with weather, you would go to Robinson, but Robinson requires a 1-week notice. So how do you get around that notice for?
We would just plan on looking at like weather forecasts like a week ahead of time for predicted rain. I mean, it's $21 a day. You can rent it out for that hour and it'll be fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.